The giveaway wasn't her words, or even her tone of voice. It was the faint, metallic scrape of her fork against the plate. That tiny tremor lasted just a second too long. It was the nervous shake of a hand, the physical tremor of a guilty conscience. When she finally spoke, her eyes were fixed anywhere but on mine. She said, "We're not going this year." There was a heavy pause. Then she added, "My sister is bringing her new boyfriend. She wants it to be just family this time." And then came the real, brutal blow. My job embarrasses her. She made no attempt to soften the blow. She just carved out the words and let the raw truth bleed out right there on the table between us. I could only stare. She refused to meet my gaze. One moment passed, then another. "I understand," I said, my voice completely flat, devoid of all emotion. She began to clear the plates, and I simply let her. The lie she told was too simple, too clean. It felt rehearsed, like a line she had practiced. Her sister, Mel, never liked me. She always thought I wasn't good enough. She once made a joke about it right in front of everyone at a birthday dinner. This, right after I had rebuilt their entire deck for free. But this new situation wasn't about embarrassment. This was a strategic game of chess, and she was carefully moving her pawns. She was trying to protect something she was sure I would never discover. I started watching her closely that week, but quietly. I noticed she smiled a little too much at her phone screen. She made 2 trips to the grocery store, but each time she returned only with non-perishable, shelf-stable items. Her phone's call log was always empty. She was under the impression I wouldn't notice these small details. But I did. I noticed everything. I chose to wait. I simply nodded when she mentioned they would be FaceTiming during the holiday dinner. I even managed to smile when she left on Thanksgiving morning. Her hair was done in beautiful waves, a style I hadn't seen in many months. She wore perfume behind her ears, a place I hadn't kissed in even longer. She truly believed she was winning this game she had started. I let her believe that. It only took 5 days to uncover the entire truth. For 5 days, I meticulously tracked app data, followed IP address logs, and used a secret burner email account I had created 2 years ago for precisely this kind of situation. She never once considered that I might be smart enough to do this. She never imagined I had my own systems and methods for discovering the truth. She married a man who fixes broken water lines and installs HVAC units. She just never realized that the same skills that let me rewire a house also let me rewire her lies and trace them back to their source. The so-called boyfriend, Mel's new man, the one who was supposedly meeting the family, was not new at all. In fact, he wasn't even Mel's boyfriend. He was hers. He was an old flame my wife had never allowed to die out completely. He lived in a different state now and even used a different name. But I traced his LinkedIn profile and then cross-referenced it with his company's travel records. The data showed trips to Denver, to Columbus, and then, for Thanksgiving weekend, a visit to our own state, just 3 towns over from us. He wasn't coming to meet the family. He had already met them long ago. The final, undeniable proof arrived as a photo that night. It was security footage. My friend Eric manages a liquor store near the cabin rentals out east. I had shown him a picture of the man's face and suggested he might have stolen something. Eric pulled the video feed, and there they were, arm in arm, laughing together. My wife was wearing the same coat she told me she had donated to charity the previous week. I printed a single still frame from the video. It showed her, smiling brightly, with him behind her, his hand tucked possessively into her back pocket. She looked younger in the picture, and somehow lighter, freer. I waited for her to come home late that night. She smelled like his cologne, barely masked by the cold winter air. She didn't notice the printed photo on the table until after she had taken off her shoes. Then there was only a heavy, crushing silence, broken only by the sound of her breathing. She didn't say a single word. She just stared at the image, and then she looked up at me as if I were a complete stranger. I calmly handed her the printed receipt from the cabin booking. It had her name on it, purchased with his credit card. It was the physical proof of their shared lie. Still, I said absolutely nothing. And that profound, unwavering silence is ultimately what shattered her. The knock on the door came that same evening. 3 people stood there. Mel, her face flushed red with confusion. Her mother, radiating a cold, speechless anger. And him, the boyfriend. Why the hell would you do this? Mel began, her voice choked. Sit down, I instructed them, my voice calm as I opened the door wider to let them all inside. My wife didn't speak a word. She just sat in the corner of the room, her body folded in on itself like a discarded, crumpled photograph. I laid out the entire paper trail for them slowly and methodically, like assembling a complicated puzzle right before their eyes. There was no yelling, no wild accusations, just a calm presentation of undeniable evidence. Hotel booking slips, phone record timestamps, and the incriminating photo. Mel stared at her sister. You, she choked out, unable to finish. The man tried to leave, but I moved to block the doorway. You're meeting the family? I asked him, my voice completely flat. He couldn't form an answer. I turned my gaze to my wife. I guess I wasn't invited, I stated simply. Now I understand why. Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt no pity for her. Then I looked directly at her mother. You raised 2 daughters, I said. One who lies to her husband, and another who lies to herself. The mother was the first to leave, with Mel following closely behind. He stood there for a moment longer, hesitating. Look, no, I can explain, he started. You don't get to speak, I said, cutting him off. He didn't try again. In the end, I never had to tell her to leave. I didn't need to. By the next morning, she was gone. She didn't take much with her, just her essential belongings. She left her wedding ring behind. She left all of her excuses, too. I sat at the kitchen table, still set for 2 people. I held a cup of coffee in my hand. It was cold now and tasted bitter. I felt no self-pity and no deep sadness. Only a sharp, crystal clarity. She had always mistaken my silence for weakness. She had looked at my work boots and assumed ignorance. She was convinced that betrayal could only thrive in the shadows. But she forgot what I do for a living. I work in dark, cramped crawl spaces every day. I know exactly what kind of things try to live and hide in the darkness. Some people try to hide their filth and secrets under the floorboards, thinking no one will ever look. My job has just always been to bring a very bright flashlight,